What the fuck? I heard that shit too. What the hell? Mm-hmm. What are you sending it on? Oh, hell no. Paranormal activities. Oh shit. Oh shit. Dude, I can hear my own voice. Yeah. I'm like super loud, but I mean, no, I'm not super loud. I just can't. Yeah. Is there like scary monsters? No. Um. Nobody has said anything. I think Alex checked. Alex is in here? There you go, seeing it. What is that? Oh, look, the mirror. Huh. Yeah. Why? I know, bro. I could never play one of these games by myself, man. Yeah. What is that? A ghastly figure? See what? Oh. What is that red baba? Oh no, my legs are falling asleep. Stop. do it, bro. Cause I'm looking at my phone. Yeah, I'm trying. It's a busted ass house, bro. There's blood on it. With the lighter. It's jammed. What the fuck? Go up, bro. It's your only option. Oh shit, you are. Oh no, it's because of a stressful situation. You going up the stairs is a stressful situation. Yes, nigga. Huh? Go, let's go. Go. I want a goon so bad right now. It's a glory hole.
Dolores' symptoms are aggravating. Doctors tell me it's become very hard to pinpoint the exact disorder. They tell me she's got symptoms of schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, psychosis, dementia, and more. I don't know what to do anymore. It feels like the treatments are only making things worse. Today she told me she often hears her own voice whispering a sequence of 5 numbers through the baby monitor. She said it's the key to her inner house. What does that even mean?
Whoa.
What am I supposed to do? Dolores' symptoms are aggravating. Doctors tell me it's become very hard to pinpoint the exact disorder. They tell me she's got symptoms of schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, psychosis, dementia, and more. I don't know what to do anymore. It feels like the treatments are only making things worse. Today she told me she often hears her own voice whispering a sequence of 5 numbers through the baby monitor. She said it's the key to her inner house. What does that even mean? What am I supposed to do?
Another one to you, bro. I need shit. Alright, we're back.
Trailers were impressive, and the game had a solid pet. Starting off with number 20, it's the Callisto Protocol. Easy to forget because the game basically disappeared the moment it actually came out, but leading up to its release, there was a ton of hype for the Callisto Protocol. When the game was announced, Dead Space was a dead franchise, fondly remembered but ignored by its publisher EA, so the promise of a spiritual successor got people pretty excited. The initial trailers were impressive, and the game had a solid pedigree. It wasn't just some yahoos making a Dead Space-like game. It was Glenn Schofield, the architect of the original Dead Space game. He didn't direct it, he was just the executive producer, but the pre-release marketing pushed his involvement hard, and we all bought into it. Finally, a real follow-up to Dead Space. Then an actual Dead Space remake was announced, and it stole all the game's thunder. That, and the game really wasn't that great. It wasn't horrible, the visuals were super impressive, but the weird focus on melee combat, the short length, and the extreme linearity kind of dumbed down what it should have been. It was not what people expected. It looks like Dead Space in some superficial ways, but the Callisto Protocol was no Dead Space. Moving on to number 19, it's Watch Dogs. Whenever you're transitioning from one gaming generation to another, there's always going to be a lot of hype. The jump from Xbox 360 to Xbox One and PlayStation 3 to 4 had to be big. It had to be a monumental shift in games as we know them. If there was one game that ended up being a lightning rod for all those hopes and dreams about next gen, it was Watch Dogs. The first trailer, something we have relitigated many, many times, was stunning and total BS. We didn't know at the time, at least the less cynical among us didn't, so the hype just kept building. Ubisoft games were already seen as being formulaic at the time, but it seemed like it was going to be something different. The game got glowing write-ups, and it was the most pre-ordered game for the 8th generation of video game consoles. Then reviews started coming out, and people started playing it, and yeah, you know the rest of the story. Here's the thing. Watch Dogs isn't terrible or anything, even mediocre. I know this is a mediocre games list. I think that Watch Dogs is a pretty good game, actually, but compared to what we were shown, it was a pretty big letdown, and regardless of how over many years people have come to appreciate it for what it is, when it came out, it absolutely, under no circumstance, lived up to the hype that Ubisoft had generated for it. It's a good-looking game, but not the amazing-looking one that the trailers shown. The whole hacking gimmick wasn't really that detailed or super interesting. It was kind of surface level. I'm not saying I hate it, but it's mostly just a well-made GTA clone. At number 18 is Homefront. Whenever a company tries to generate a vast transmedia empire out of nowhere, the results tend to crash and burn. It's why they don't do it that often, and when it works, it's kind of amazing. But it doesn't usually work. Homefront, perfect example. It wasn't just going to be the next big Call of Duty killer. It was going to be the next big thing, period. They put out a book before release. They brought in a big Hollywood screenwriter, John Milius, I think is how to say his last name. But they brought him in to bring the story credibility. They launched a massive marketing campaign to get people hyped for this thing. And I don't think I knew anyone who was actually hyped. I remember ads for Homefront popping up everywhere. The game was unavoidable in the weeks leading up to its release, but, let's say the idea of some competition for Call of Duty, fine, good. But the premise of this thing was absolutely absurd. It's about the United States
Despite numerous complaints about the decline in game quality of modern AAA releases, the game industry has still managed to deliver a wealth of impressive releases in recent years. With so many standout titles, it's only natural that the competition for Game of the Year would be so fierce, with many games coming close to winning the prestigious award, but ultimately fell short for one reason or another. However, this doesn't mean these games were lacking in any way. And this feature will highlight 15 titles that were not Game of the Year, but came pretty darn close regardless. Alan Wake 2. Remedy Entertainment delivered one of the best works with Alan Wake 2, a sequel that takes everything that worked in the original and amps it all the way up to 11. In addition to being a visual masterpiece, Alan Wake 2 is brimming with detail, and fans can easily spend hours upon hours dissecting the many themes that lie hidden behind its mind-boggling narrative. It's easily one of the most creative releases of recent memory, and one that is sure to stay lingering in your mind long after the credits roll. Ghosts of Tsushima. Set against the backdrop of the war-torn island of Tsushima, Ghosts of Tsushima tells a riveting tale about Jin Sakai's quest to liberate his hometown from the clutches of evil. Sucker Punch has created a beautiful open world filled with expectations of fans. 2077 Cyberpunk for dozens upon dozens of hours on end. Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. Cyberpunk 2077 easily stands tall as one of the most highly anticipated games of recent memory, and it's no secret that CD Projekt Red failed to meet the lofty expectations of fans. The game's post-launch expansion pack Phantom Liberty did right many of those wrongs, right from streamlining an overtly complicated progression system to delivering interesting narrative choices and a world brimming with things to do. Well and truly, Phantom Liberty is Cyberpunk 2077 at its best and remains one of the best RPGs to have come out in the last few years. Resident Evil Village. After a fabulous reimagining with Resident Evil 7, the developer delivered another banger with Resident Evil Village. It continues the story of Ethan Winters and takes you on a horrifying journey through a deserted Romanian village. In many ways, it's a celebration of everything horror with different stages showcasing different shades of madness, ranging from action to survival and even psychological. Village does a great job of switching between these forms of gameplay without much friction. Psychonauts 2. The tale of Psychonauts 2's development is a curious one, and the fact that it actually came out after all those struggles and delays is honestly an achievement in and of itself. Psychonauts 2 continues the story of Raz, now an official Psychonaut who must enter the twisted minds of individuals scattered across the organization's headquarters to uncover some truly compelling mysteries. The game takes you through carefully curated platforming jungle gyms based on different themes, and Tim Schafer's witty writing and design chops shine through each aspect of the experience. Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon. From Software's Armored Core series made a grand comeback with the recently released Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon. Set in the distant future, Armored Core 6 is all about taking up deathly missions in a wide variety of environments while trying to create the ultimate fighting machine decked with the best weaponry and mobility tools. Top that off with FromSoft's signature storytelling style and freedom of expression through the many experimental builds on offer, and Armored Core 6 easily becomes one of the best games to have released in 2023. Returnal. House and in turn is beautifully reflected in the brutal combat of the game as you repeatedly try to inch closer and closer to the finish line. The fast and fluid combat loop, the many options that players have at their disposal, and the compelling central mystery of it all are just some of the game's biggest strengths. While reaching the end credits can prove to be a rather challenging experience for many players, the sense of accomplishment you get after overcoming these huge odds is something that will keep you coming back. These at your disposal finish selected instinct to use the Returnal games to have. Housemarque's Returnal was one of the more creative games to use the time loop mechanic to its advantage, and in turn create a rather distinct experience. Celine's desperate attempts to break the time loop is beautifully reflected in the brutal combat of the game as you repeatedly try to inch closer and closer to the finish line. The fast and fluid combat loop, the many options that players have at their disposal, the end you get. Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 took everything that worked in the original and knitted an even bigger web of ideas with dual protagonists and a huge open world brimming with things to do and buildings to swing across. The story is a big improvement over the original, and it excellently juggles between the struggles of the two Spider-Men while also shedding light on side characters like Mary Jane. The combat has also been expanded upon with new gadgets and updated stealth options, and the game beautifully embraces the difference between Miles Morales and Peter Parker with different movesets and fighting styles, making for a consistently thrilling experience throughout its run. A Plague Tale Requiem. A Plague Tale is easily developer Asobo's best work in quite some time, and while the first game, Innocence, suffered from a few issues, the sequel, Requiem, tries to right those wrongs with a story that's much bigger in scope and new mechanics to go along with it. The plague-ravaged countryside makes for an excellent backdrop, and it's all beautifully brought to life with crisp visuals and spot-on motion capture, making for an experience that's almost impossible to put down once you get the hang of it. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. Wolfenstein 2: The New Order was a wonderful modernization of the long-running franchise, and Machine Games tried to take it to the next level with 2017's Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. BJ Blazkowicz's adrenaline-pumping journey through an alternative universe is an appropriately over-the-top thrill ride that goes hand-in-hand with a bombastic combat on display. Wolfenstein 2 repeatedly puts players in sprawling arenas filled with waves upon waves of enemies, and mastering the intricate strategy of survival in such fast-paced scenarios provided a very distinct thrill that first-person shooter fans should not miss out on. Judgment. Judgment makes for an interesting take on the Yakuza open-world formula, swapping the traditional crime family drama for a detective thriller in the same district of Kamurocho that fans have come to love. The flashy and functional combat does make for pretty enjoyable fight sequences, and while Judgment can occasionally rely too much on drawn-out investigation sequences and tailing sequences that put the game's pacing to a halt, it's a rather fantastic experience when you take a look at it on the whole. Death Stranding. Kojima Productions' Death Stranding breaks new ground by birthing an entire genre based on getting from point A to point B. It does a lot of clever things to make that simple act engaging, and its social features encourage cooperation in a world where communities lie isolated from one another, further strengthening its narrative themes. Death Stranding is far from a perfect game, and it's definitely not everyone's cup of tea, but it is easily one of the most creative games that continues to inspire so many developers to this date. Demon's Souls. In many ways, Demon's Souls is the game that put developer From Software on the map. At a time when games were increasingly getting adamant about appealing to the largest possible audience, Demon's Souls provided a rather fresh experience, one that needed to be dealt with on the game's terms as opposed to what the gamers wished. Strong world building, tough but fair combat, and unique mechanics like world tendency come together to create something truly special, and fans just couldn't get enough of it. Oxenfree 2: Lost Signals. The original Oxenfree was easily one of the best games in its class, beautifully knitting together a narrative with interesting dialogue choices and well-written characters. With the sequel, Night School Studio tried to push those concepts to a higher degree with great success.
Completely flipping out. You need to go back to Camber Cave and see what the transmitter is doing, right now.
Oh, really? Well, if you could see what's going on.
Evelyn, this is Riley. Sorry, but there's no way we're going back there.
Oxenfree's ability to perfectly execute a horror story that puts the character development at the forefront is something that puts it in a different league entirely, and that coupled with the beautiful art style makes for a rather unforgettable experience. Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush feels like the most antithetical game from Tango Gameworks, a developer mostly known for titles like The Evil Within and more recently Ghostwire Tokyo. Sporting a cartoony art style, Hi-Fi Rush presents an interesting mishmash of traditional action games and rhythm games, and it all works rather beautifully. Hi-Fi Rush is a very well-crafted action-adventure game that's oozing with detail and witty writing, and one that stands tall as one of the best games to have been released in 2023.
What's the endgame?
I'm securing our future. Please, even you can figure that out.
By controlling the consumers.
It's not control, I'm freeing them.
That's not how I see it.
I don't need to explain myself to a defect. All you do is hit things with a guitar.
Hey, did you know that we at Gaming Bolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.
PC games.
The first rule of playing Sons of the Forest is to experience the original. Long development cycles for projects are nothing new in the gaming industry, but they can sometimes. It's one thing to create greatness, but improving on it? Adding to it? Well, almost impossible, maybe even downright insulting, but Crowbar Collective did just that with Black Mesa, its remake of the first Half-Life. Besides visually polishing up everything about the original, it adds some great new details, and look out for an Eli Vance cameo, a new soundtrack, improved AI, and countless other improvements. Above all else, it delivers a completely different version of Zen, depicting an appropriate level of scale and epicness to cap off the incredible campaign. Frostpunk 2.
Good morning and welcome to the Black Mesa Transit System. Now arriving.
Some will prefer the scope and scale of the original, but Frostpunk 2 is still worth playing. The essence of survival in a post-apocalyptic beyond frozen wasteland weighed against more social struggles like appeasing the various factions, quelling riots, and passing bills. Progress is measured in weeks instead of months, and trying to ensure New London makes it through while offering a better life can get emotionally trying, but in a good way mostly. The heavier city builder focus may not be for everyone, but Frost game consisting of a collection of retro console-style games currently available on PC. It sounds firm. Roguelites have evolved by leaps and bounds over recent years, but for decades, video games stuck to a set of underlying rules, primarily that you must fight and often kill the bad guy to win. Toby Fox's Undertale emerged as a desire to completely overturn those rules, resulting in a game where your every decision, even the battles you engage in, profoundly impacts the story. Beyond just the dialogue system, the combat also drew praise for its bullet hell-esque defensive mechanics and timed attacks leveraged in unexpected ways.
My name is Dr. Eric
Helldivers
Sigurdsson,
2.
Head of Weapons and Materials Research, here at the Black Mesa Research Facility. Our first-rate associates have always designed, developed.
Leaving aside the whole debacle surrounding the mandatory linking of PSN accounts, Helldivers 2 is an excellent co-op experience. Not only does it bring the original's unforgiving combat and stratagems into a third-person space with much higher fidelity visuals, but it's one of the better live service games out there. Galactic War throws out numerous new objectives, like liberating planets to unlock new weapons and stratagems, all while telling a Kong. Game Science's action RPG is pretty demanding on PC, but the payoff is immense. It showcases the sheer fidelity of the environments and the attention to detail, be it for architecture or for things like fur, in a startling fashion. Even if your hardware can't permit all of that, Black Myth Wukong is still worth playing just for the sheer joy of the adventure, whether it's exploring and discovering new side quests or in